Mystery that shook America, a hijacker disappeared in the sky, leaving behind a clue of $5,800 and a puzzle that has not been solved for more than 50 years. An ordinary passenger, wearing a suit, carrying a briefcase, calling himself Dan Cooper, quietly turned a routine trip into a real nightmare, and then disappeared from the sky, leaving behind a puzzle that has lasted for more than half a century. In major cities in the Pacific Northwest such as Portland, Seattle, many restaurants and cafes have opened with the name Cooper and sell souvenirs to tourists. Not many tourists know that this name was inspired by the world-famous robber Dan Cooper, in the hijacking case that is ranked among the robberies of the century in America. The incident began on Thanksgiving evening, November 24, 1971 at Portland International Airport, Oregon, USA. A male passenger carrying a black briefcase, wearing a suit, came to the ticket counter of Northwest Orient Airlines, calling himself Dan Cooper, according to CNN. According to the memory of witnesses, he was a man in his 40s, about 1m8 tall, and bought a one-way ticket for flight number 305, from Portland to Seattle. The flight took off at 2:50 p.m., local time, with 37 passengers. A few minutes after the Boeing 727 took off, Cooper handed the flight attendant sitting closest to him, Florence Schaffner, a folded piece of paper. When he saw that the young flight attendant had not yet opened the message, Cooper leaned toward her and whispered, "You should look at the paper. I have a bomb." The note read, "I have a bomb in my briefcase, which will detonate when necessary. I want you to come sit next to me. The plane has been hijacked." Schaffner followed the request on the letter and sat next to the terrorist. Cooper also made his demands clear: $200,000, about $1.2 million in today's money, 4 parachutes, a fuel tanker waiting at Seattle Airport to refuel the plane and then fly on to Mexico City. Cooper's demands were quickly conveyed by Schaffner to the captain. Captain William Scott contacted the Seattle-Tacoma Airport Air Traffic Control Tower, who immediately called the police. The remaining 36 passengers on board were informed that the landing time would be slightly delayed due to a technical problem, and the police were urgently prepared to meet all the hijackers' demands. After landing at Seattle Airport, Cooper instructed Scott to take the plane to a secluded, lit area of the runway and cut off the power in the cabin to block snipers. After receiving the money and parachutes, he allowed the 36 passengers and 2 flight attendants, Schaffner and Alice Hancock, to leave the plane. While the plane was refueling, Cooper informed the captain of the plan: fly southwest toward Mexico City, at the lowest speed possible to avoid crashing the plane and maintain an altitude of about 3,000 m. At this time, there were 5 people on the plane: Cooper, flight attendant Tina Mucklow, Captain Scott, First Officer Rateza and Engineer Anderson. 2 fighter jets took off from McCord Air Force Base following the civilian plane, flying parallel to each other and out of Cooper's sight. Another U.S. Air Patrol training plane was sent to monitor this Boeing 727. Around 8 p.m., the cockpit light signaled that the rear stairs had been activated. The crew's request for assistance through the plane's communication system went unanswered. Dan opened the back stairs, parachuted out of the plane and took all the ransom money with him. When the pilot landed the plane safely, the FBI and federal special forces surrounded the plane, searched everything and quickly discovered that Cooper had disappeared. In the cabin, the police collected 66 fingerprints. Witnesses in Portland, Seattle, and Reno, along with all those who had communicated or contacted Cooper, were questioned. Many sketches of Cooper were drawn based on the descriptions of witnesses. The FBI launched an extensive investigation, lasting for many years to find this hijacker. However, everything was fruitless. The FBI even continued to investigate even though the case had expired. In 5 years, they questioned more than 800 suspects, but all were soon eliminated from the list of suspects. Among the above group of people was a character who was most suspected, Richard Floyd McCoy. He had been arrested in another hijacking and was trying to escape by parachute. However, police later discovered that McCoy was just trying to imitate his idol Cooper. The hopeless search and lost clues. The FBI then launched the largest search in the country's history. They scoured forests and rivers, but found no trace of the hijacker or the money. The only clue that appeared came in 1980, when a boy camping with his family on the banks of the Columbia River accidentally found $5,800 in cash buried in the sand. The serial numbers of these bills matched the ransom amount. However, other than that, nothing else, no parachute, no clothes, no body, was found. Cooper he left only a few things on the plane, a tie clip, and 8 cigarette butts, though the butts were later lost by investigators. Decades later, scientists examined the tie with modern tools. They found tiny particles of rare industrial metals like titanium, which were uncommon at the time. This led some researchers to speculate that Cooper may have worked in a factory, chemical plant, or aerospace industry. Thousands of suspects and unsolved mysteries. Over the years, the FBI interviewed more than 1,000 people, considering countless suspects, including former military personnel, convicted criminals, and even a college professor. But no one could be definitively convicted of involvement in the hijacking. Some died before being questioned, and others were ruled out through fingerprints or alibis. The enduring fascination of the D.B. Cooper legend. There is a special reason why the public continues to talk about this case. Cooper never harmed anyone, spoke respectfully to the crew, and seemed strangely well prepared for his actions. However, the conditions of the jump were extremely dangerous, with cold weather, strong winds, and dense jungle below. Experts say it was easy to get lost, seriously injured, or worse. Yet, no body has ever been found. Some believe he died in the fateful jump. Others believe he escaped and went into hiding under a new identity. Over the years, countless people have claimed to be Cooper or to know who he is. Books have been written, movies have been made, and the name D.B. Cooper has become part of American popular culture. Even the FBI seems to struggle to categorize him. Was he a reckless criminal, a clever veteran, or just someone who wanted to disappear from the world? It's worth noting that the name D.B. Cooper was more a media fabrication than the hijacker's real name. When he bought his ticket, he gave his name as Dan Cooper. The abbreviation DB was mistaken by a reporter for someone the FBI had briefly interviewed earlier. The erroneous name appeared in the press, and it persists to this day. Whatever the ultimate truth, one thing is clear: a man boarded a plane in 1971 with a briefcase, a daring plan, and a story that has yet to be told. The mystery of D.B. Cooper will continue to haunt and intrigue humanity for years to come.